Please stand. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction, which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Milanese.
Here.
Councilor Rourke.
Here.
Councilor Samaras.
Here.
Councilor Belanger.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Leahy.
Here.
Councilor Leary.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
9 present.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the request and because of the admiration of many teachers, I was asked and would like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Lillian Tuzin, a resident of the Pawtucketville section of the city. Lillian was a communicant of the former St. John d'Arc Parish and most recently St. Rita's Parish. With fondness for children, she enjoyed working in the cafeteria at the Bartlett School for numerous years, along with working at the Riley School before that. She was very well loved and was always there for the children. Some years ago, the teachers who admire her so asked me to present her with a citation. Lillian leaves behind her 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. We offer our sympathy to her family, relatives, and her many teachers and friends. She will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Under the City Clerk, we have the minutes of the City Council special meeting of February 27th, the Technologies and Utilities Subcommittee of February 28th, and the City Council meeting of February 28th for acceptance. A motion to accept and place on file by Council Milanese, second by Council Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under communications from the City Manager, we have items A through G. The first one is the introductory meeting with the new owners of the Franco-American. Any discussion? Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, thank you. I want to thank you and Kevin Coughlin for taking time to sitting down with a new offer that's sale that's, I should say, is pending with developer Brian McGowan of the Franco-American property. We all know the great history of that landmark in the acre section of Lowell, and we're all watching in. It's a very, very important parcel And knowing Mr. McGowan for the amount of years I have, it's in very, very good hands. So I wanted him to become acquainted with the manager, and it sounds like a very, very positive conversation that Mr. McGowan has not taken ownership of the parcel just yet, but he is wide open to an array of different ideas and concepts for the property that I think the city will approve of. And seems like he's more than willing to work with the city in any capacity, in all capacity, with the city and the university to better that property. So I think we're in great hands, and I just wanted the manager to become better acquainted. And when he does go through the process a little bit more and he has more definitive ideas, I'd like to see him come in and speak to my colleagues about it, and they become acquainted as well. But just to let everyone know, I'm very hopeful on that property that some good things are in store for us there. So thank you again, Mr. Manager, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on item A? Counselor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the manager. Mr. Manager, when they did talk about this, you and your team, did they mentioned the grotto? I got a couple of phone calls asking the grotto's going to stay the exact way it is.
Yeah.
Is that something you heard as well?
Yes, he's going to do something to preserve the grotto. I told him he had to, just out of respect to my former colleagues who praise their often, so he is going to do something.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also am concerned about the grotto, considering the fact that I work with a correctional officer whose 4 children went to that school, and he took each one of those Stations of the Cross to his home, repaired it, took a tedious work and put them back there. They're in excellent condition because of the many years of work he put into that. So he would be wondering as well, and I didn't know what to tell him. So thank you if you could make us aware of what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on item A? If not, we'll move on to item B, an update regarding the superintendent's efforts to have the LPD achieve accreditation. Any discussion? Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I want to commend you and all your efforts on this. You're working very hard on this issue, and I think it's great. But if you can just, through you to the Superintendent Taylor here tonight, if you can just sort of clarify the benefits of being accredited, just for the folks at home and for the council, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you very much, through you, Mayor, to the City Council. It has tremendous benefits for the department and the entire city. The first step of the accreditation process to make sure you have a complete set of policy and procedures, which essentially are the playbook of running the police department. That's a very time-consuming and laborious process. We've just completed 115 policies. It actually took longer than we even envisioned to do this. And essentially what it does is it makes us go through each policy and procedure in the police department, whether it's the use of force, which is obviously a very high liability issue, down to evidence management, and most recently it demonstrated itself with the immigration enforcement policy that we completed a couple of years ago. So we've just completed that. I will venture to say that's probably the first time in certainly 25 years or so that the police department has a state-of-the-art, up-to-date best practices, policies, and procedures done and effectively disseminated using a web-based and cloud-based program so that every member of the organization has them at their fingertips on a mobile device or their desktop. And I think the benefit to the organization was illustrated with the immigration enforcement. That was one of the earlier policies we did as part of this accreditation process. It's in line with the best practices in the industry and in police work. And so when the time came, as it inevitably does with many of these policies, that there's some interest from the public and the city leadership here, the city council, about that, we're able to demonstrate and roll out that we've already have a very effective policy on immigration enforcement. And I think it showed to the citizens of the city that we're on top of our game, certainly, when it comes to that. So I think it was reassuring to me personally, and hopefully to everybody, that we had that policy and it was in line with the best practices. And I think it put a lot of members of the community at ease that we deal with immigration enforcement very effectively. And that's really illustrates how useful this is to the department and the city as a whole. We still have a ways to go. There's some facilities modifications that we hope to get done in the next several months in terms of evidence storage, security at the police department. The city council graciously has already supplied the funds to do that, and we're in the process of going out to RFPs and trying to get those things done. So we're still in the self-assessment phase, which involves the policy and some modifications and things like that. That's by far and away the most laborious portion of this accreditation process. And then we hope to move into the pre-assessment and then actually have people come in and evaluate us on our performance.
Great, that was a great explanation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Superintendent Taylor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to item C. Thank you. Thanks, Chief. The Economic Development Plan for Cabot and Market Street area, Counselor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Mr. Manager, thank you for the report. The report does a good job in outlining all the steps that will be taken to deal with the issues on Cabot Street in that area. We also talked about the working with our relationship with the Working Cities Grant, which is our grant. Is it possible at one point to have the director come before this council and give us an overview of what steps he's taken to meet the objectives that were outlined in the Working Cities Grant? I think every member of this council has been interested in this area, and I think it would be good to give us that type of information.
Do you mean the person they just hired to
Yes.
lead
Yes.
that's the person you like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the steps of, the objectives have already been outlined. It's not like he has to create these objectives, but the thing is, what plans, I know it's an early stage, but I think we'd like to follow that as it goes along. Thank you.
Any further discussion on item C? Counselor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. So in this report, it has that John Dock has, I don't know if they sold it or if they're gonna develop it with them. Can someone,
I can tell you.
Okay.
They haven't sold it, but they're working, it's no secret, they're working with
Yeah.
a company that wants to put student housing there.
right,
I've met with them. I've asked them to incorporate some type of commercial component on the first or second floors, but they're still in the initial discussions of it. I know that they needed to talk to UMass Lowell, and they have parking issues there, so it's still in the infancy stage, but there's no, it's no secret that they're working with a developer who's proposing student housing.
okay. And how big is it? Did they sell them that whole corner from?
Yes, the whole corner.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say they haven't sold it yet, but they're proposing to sell the entire block.
Counselor Leahy, you were all set? Yeah. Counselor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, does the city have an opinion on that vision as of right now, student housing? I know through the Lowell Sun, the media outlets, that the university is not prepared to support that. And we've seen examples of this with the Vision Project at the old former Lowell 5 site, where, you can do it, but basically you're on your own. We supply housing, and that would not be policed by the UMass police. That would be policed by Lowell police, right? So do we have a position on that yet, you and your administration, may I ask?
I mean, I have some concerns about it. My conversations with the chancellor at UMass Lowell, it's clear that they don't need additional student housing at this time. They've already fulfilled what's necessary. So, I have some concerns about it. I'd rather see a commercial venture go into that area. But unfortunately, it's owned by a private entity, and we can't dictate what's going there. We can encourage them to do certain things because they're going to need some parking from us. But at this point in time, I'm not 100% sure that it's a viable opportunity because UMass Lowell has already said they've met their residential needs.
I would agree. I would agree with you 100%, Mr. Manager. I mean, anything is an improvement. Nobody is happy with what's there now, a big barren lot that's fenced in, absolutely. But I agree, I echo your comments that, at least the university has made the stance that, you're on your own, quite frankly. Sort of what they did with Vision, and they decided to go forward, and that's fine. But yeah, geez, It's, it's sort of out of our control in one sense. It's privately owned, it's a private developer, but just, let us know with your outreach, continue to update the council what the plan is on that parcel. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Counselor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, is there a way that you could get something from probably the treasurer's office or the assessor's office as to how much was generated from that property at one time? Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on item C? Counselor Leahy?
Thank you. I just have one quick question. Councilor Mercia sparked this. So if that was, where that was the bank and it was basically just bank-run business, if it does become housing, does that generate a bigger bill because it's worth more or anything? Or because of all the housing, does that generate more money?
No, believe it or not, that housing isn't treated as a commercial enterprise, so it wouldn't be the commercial tax rate. So we can do an analysis whether what it was paying as a commercial enterprise and what it would be paying as a residential complex. We can do that analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on item C? If not, we'll move on to item D, noise complaints at the Samples Pavilion. Counselor Elliott.
Excuse me, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, Mr. Manager. I appreciate there's some good recommendations in here. Pardon me. So I guess what I learned is that for permanent events, there can be amplified music up to 10 p.m. That seems pretty late during the week, maybe because I'm getting old, but to have music played that loud, and it is loud, and I know it's supposed to be kept at acceptable levels, and I think that's where, excuse me, that's where the issue is. The permit holders they don't keep within reasonable noise, and of course the speakers are projected, at the audience, which is directly behind the neighborhood. It carries through the neighborhood. I am probably 4 miles away, 3 miles away, or maybe a mile the way the crow flies, but I can hear it at some events, and this is a good start. To me, it's just DCR right now. They are the issuers of the permit, and I personally just don't believe that they have the staff to do that, nor do they enforce it. I do see here that they measure the noise, but it's not just this year, Mr. Manager, and it's not last year. It's years and years and even decades to some degree. And to me, the reason why there are consistent problems is because the permit holders, they violate the permit. They exceed the noise requirements with excessive noise and after hours, and they get away with it because there's no repercussions. So I don't know what your thoughts are. I think this is a good process. They're going to be allowed to participate with pre-planning activities, and I would just like to say if there are problems, then I think we pull their permits, and that's the only way to kind of do it. I don't mean to whine about this, but it's frustrating year after year that it's a beautiful facility, and it's being used, it's being abused by not all, but a lot. So I don't want to ramble on anymore.
No, it's interesting you bring that up, because I learned something today about our current city ordinance relative to amplification, because we're dealing with this with the negotiation of the Spinners lease, because they want to have concerts at LaLasha Park in the future, and I want to make sure that the noise level's appropriate. The current ordinance in the city of Lowell is from Sunday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to midnight. So that's certainly something we should look at, because when I saw that, I said, that's kind of late for a dinosaur like myself. As far as the Samples Pavilion, I think we've made some great strides with DCR, working with the police department. I'm disappointed in the permitting. I was really hoping that we'd take over the permitting process, because then we'd have a better control on the events that are going on there, and also the permitting fees, to make sure that we could have somebody there with a amplification device. I'm not so sure they have. So I was there on the 4th of July, and there was nobody from DCR. anywhere. So I think maybe the chief could just explain some, other than the permitting, which they're going to keep doing, what advances are we making with them? You can summarize.
Yes, Mr. Manager, through the mayor to the city council. We are going to be included on the distribution list for any permitting in the future, and so we'll be able to weigh in on the appropriateness of a particular entity that wants to get a permit. And so we can report negative behavior from our own perspective from a previous encounter with some people. So I think that's a positive development. In addition to that, where we do have concurrent jurisdiction with the park rangers and the management of the park, the Lowell Police will be able to write citations on the Massachusetts Code of Enforcement for the park, and they have already supplied us with the books, and they're going to do a little bit of training for our officers that work in that area. So again, that's a positive development. The bad part of that is that's an additional burden on the Lowell Police Department. But in the interest of, we are responsible to our residents who have been on occasion negatively impacted by noise and disorder up there. It's certainly something that I think is appropriate for us to do.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I personally feel better that there is that partnership. We can write citations, because unfortunately, I think until you write citations, whoever the organizer is, it could change from year to year. I'm not talking about the dance routines that take place, but I do like the fact, I appreciate, Mr. Manager, that you looked into the ordinance. I think that's loud. I mean, that's late for, for anyone, particularly during the evening. I mean, people that live in that neighborhood, they're entitled to have some peace and quiet at night as well. And I understand the festivals, and they're not every weekend, but it's a resource, and we just need to come to common agreement. 12 o'clock at night to hear screeching music, to hear really loud music blaring through the neighborhood, to me, is something that needs to be revised and changed. So will you be bringing in an ordinance change, or do you want this council to make a motion, or that's something we'll just kind of wait?
I just learned about it this morning, so, if the council is so inclined for me to look in and make a report as to whether we should revisit that, I'll certainly do that.
So, Mr. Mayor, if there's no objection when we do accept this, or should I make a motion to, I guess we usually accept them as report of progress, but I think it's good
Yeah,
to
but if you want to
refer
send
this
this
to the manager.
You want to send this to, you can do that right now.
Yeah, so I'd like to send, it came from the manager, but maybe we can just request that the manager come back with an amendment to the noise ordinance to change the times, the time limitations during the week and the weekends. But I think in large part, so I'll make that motion, then I'll just have two more statements.
Motion seconded. Are you all set, Councilor Rowland?
Just one more, Mr. Mayor. So, I think there are some other very good recommendations with the leash law and the community policing and et cetera, et cetera. It's good that we tighten it up. And lastly, I do think one thing is important, so we don't feel like we're helpless. There is a 24-hour telephone number that people can call now to non-emergency on the weekends to register their complaints. And I think that I'd like to get that number, and wherever we can put it on the website, I think that's going to be helpful to hold them accountable, let the police know, and then moving forward when they want more permits, we'll say, hey, we got, these are the complaints that we see. So thank you, Mr. Manager. I think this is important. I know it's winter and nothing's going on, but it'll be upon us soon enough, and the people in that neighborhood will very much appreciate this.
Thank you. All right, so we have Council
Mr.
Belanger,
Mayor.
then Council Rourke, then Council Samaras, then Council Leary. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate Councilor Elliott's motion, and this neighborhood needed relief. There was no two ways about it. I met with residents up there, I met with business owners, and things were coming to a head up there. And this seems like we're on our way to a resolution, but I do have a few concerns. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, I don't think you are correct as far as Thursdays. I think it's Sunday to Thursday night is 10 p.m., not, I think the difference is Thursday night is 10 p.m., not midnight. I know Friday and Saturday is till midnight. However, I think this noise ordinance should be referred to the appropriate subcommittee, and I'll give you my reasons, is that this ordinance is a citywide ordinance. It doesn't just stand for the Sampras Pavilion. This affects the Lowell Folk Festival. This affects Winterfest. I don't care if the city of Lowell is behind it. This time, everyone and everything has to adhere to this time frame. So before we, I agree that something needs to happen here. I agree with Councilor Elliott, but I'd like to get a little more discussion on this, weigh in from those organizers of these different festivals and functions that keep this city going without harming them, to be honest. So, I think we're going in the right direction. And lastly, Mr. Mayor, through you to the chief. Now, Chief, you mentioned the point, yes, I like the fact that, the Lowell Police, now the city, we now seem to be well on our way to more involvement in what takes place up there and more say. That's a good thing, but it is a use on resources. So I'd like to see, what about police details? These shows should be just like any other event. If anybody pulls a permit personally, or the city of Lowell pulls a permit for Winterfest, they have to have paid details, and this is no different up there, in my opinion. So I'd like to see paid details up there, depending on your department will determine the type of venue, so to speak, and how many details you think it may require. And then the permit holder will have to pay for those details. I don't think it should come out of the normal routine cop on the beat and take from the neighborhoods whatsoever. So is that open for us on this as we go forward as well?
Councilor, they are looking into that, and that's a realistic possibility as we move forward, especially on significant events. So I think that is definitely something they're looking into.
Excellent, excellent. I don't want to be taking the police that's on watch and putting him on this. I don't think that's right. So, okay. Great job, Chief. I think we're on the right track. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Rook. Okay, Council Samaras?
Thank you. As been stated, amplification is a problem, but also some of the neighbors talked about some of these programs that come in. They're supposed to say we start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they start at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're supposed to end at 10:30, they're still going. Is there any way that we can empower the chief and his people to, if they've exceeded that time, to shut them down? That's the common complaint. I mean, noise is a major issue, but the lack of adhering to any type of program has been a problem.
And that's why it's important. We originally wanted to do the permitting ourselves, because then we could set those time limits. But the second best thing is that we will at least be informed of the permits that are generated, and we'll know what the time parameters are and be able to enforce those.
Okay, that's what they're looking for. Thank you.
Council Leary?
No, sir.
Okay. Any
Just
further?
have one thing quickly to add.
Council Leahy.
If we can always, if they start, you can do something with the electricity up there. So if they're starting too early, if you have a permit from 9 to 9, the electricity starts at 8:58. So just have somebody put the electricity on a timer. Then you can't start early. Done.
I make a motion to designate Councilor Leahy to go up and shut the lights off.
Any further discussion on item D? So there's a motion on the floor relative to item D to refer to the city manager's office. All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next, we'll move on to item E, which is the economic impact of Eastern Bank closing the Centerville location. Any discussion?
Just
Council
quickly,
Leary.
first, thank you for the quick response, and it's good to see that there's a sale going through in March. And I don't think you would know, you said a food store, but we really still don't know what that food store is. Okay. But I do appreciate, I think the game plan after that is actually following up with the neighborhood, going door to door to the businesses and really getting an idea of their needs and what we can do as a city to assist them. Kind of like, well, very much like you're doing in Couple Square and what you're about to do on Bridge Street as well. So thank you very much for the quick response.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on item E? If not, we'll move on to item F, online payments. Any discussion, Councilor Leary?
Just quick, just a question that, first, thank you. I like the timeline for other online payments. What type of vendor do we use? One of the parts of the report, there was a vendor regarding that we would not be able to have an online payment. I'm not sure, what type of an example would that be? The report listed basically we're going to put on dog licenses, what have you, will be rolling in 2017 or 2018, which is fantastic. But then the report went into there's certain vendors that people have to make payments to, that all we're receiving is the bill. So I don't quite understand how that would prohibit it, if there's a reason for it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to your question, the merchant that would be a third-party collector of the convenience fee, which would not be borne by the city, we would have to pay those services. So
An example would be, what's an example?
They would be just any processor that, like a Visa
Okay.
or American Express, that would bid on the service to process the fee.
Okay, so if I'm getting my dog license then, if you're gonna be setting it up in, I guess, 2018, and I wanna pay with my Visa card, how would that work then?
Well, the financial
Wouldn't work,
institution would just facilitate
Yeah.
the transaction online, so it would go through
Okay.
their system to the city.
So there really isn't an issue where if by 2018, we'll pretty much be able to pay everything online?
For the most part, that's correct,
Okay,
Counselor.
good. I just misunderstood it. Thank you. And thank you for the timely response to it. I think it's pretty good.
Thank you, Counsel. Counsel Milonazo.
Thank you. My understanding is the current online service that we use, they do charge 40 cents per transaction to answer Councilor Leary's question. I don't know if that's still true. And they also, which is a good service, they actually will provide an email reminding you that a bill is due. If you had historically paid it online, they'll remind you if a quarterly bill is due and will, get noticed on cell phone. So, but again, I think it's a 40 cent transaction fee.
Mr. Manager.
If paying by electronic check, so an ACH payment, there would be a 40-cent charge. If you're paying using a credit card, the payment depends on which card you're using, and that is a percentage determined by your financial institution.
Any further discussion on this? Counsel Leahy.
Thanks. Through you to the manager, or, there was an issue maybe a year ago or so, that somebody was trying to make a real estate transaction. They wanted to pay their real estate taxes after a closing. They wanted to pay the complete year. This was probably going back right before you got on. And we weren't able to process the fee for the whole year or something. Does that make sense? So I remember the attorney telling me that they got the check back, and all they wanted to do was pay the whole year in advance for the real estate taxes.
You can have him send it to me, I'll
Yeah,
take
he'll
it.
take it.
But I don't know,
Does that sound familiar, Connor?
we'll check with the, we'll check to see if there was an issue relative to that, though.
All right, I didn't know if it would get cleared up with this or not, but I'll get more of the details and find out. But I just remember they wouldn't allow you to pay too far in advance for the real estate taxes. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further discussion on online payments? If not, we'll move on to the City of Lowell smartphone application. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the communications from the city manager, place them on file by Councilor Belanger, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication from the city manager requesting out-of-state travel for 2 people in the health department, 2 people in the police department, and 2 people in the planning department. We have a motion to approve. Motion approved by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Discussion, roll call.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote to accept a gift in the amount of $6,197.61 from the Lowell plan. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading and go to the second reading, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to accept a gift of $6,197.61 from the Lowell Plan Incorporated to be used to promote and market the city of Lowell. Do we have motion approved by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo? Discussion, roll call.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a report from the Technology and Utility Subcommittee that was put off from last week. Councilor Leary.
Quickly, I'll be brief with it. The entire city council was in attendance, as well as representatives from Verizon. The ultimate discussion was the ongoing FiOS versus the wireless issues. So we had a presentation from Verizon regarding their request, which was ultimately to put 50 canisters strategically throughout the city to help really the capacity of your cell phone or your wireless abilities. And a lot of the dialogue, from the committee, and I'll let them speak for themselves if they have any questions. But ultimately came down to, why aren't we having more FiOS in the city? Because we actually do have FiOS in certain pockets, for example, the Wanna-Lancet Mills. And I think the ultimate response is that their response was most of their customers actually are requiring FiOS, and that it's actually a better fit for what their customers' needs are in the city. And I think that the way to look at the discussion is really more than there's two big issues. One, capacity and use of capacity, and also then what we've I guess the beginning of the discussions looked at really the Comcast and cable TV. They're two separate discussions, and ultimately what Verizon has done is they're really out of the FiOS business in terms of the cable TV companies. When they last came in here, when they presented almost a year ago, they basically said we're out of the FiOS business completely. And then a couple weeks after that, there was a big article in the various newspapers regarding that they were having a program with FiOS in the city of Boston, which was a complete different discussion point that we had in our last meeting. So obviously there's a lot of concern and a lot of folks had a lot of questions. And ultimately, Verizon began the conversation by saying that they were sorry for the misunderstanding, that they at middle management level were not cognizant of the fact that Boston negotiation had actually taken place, and that they do have some capacity for FiOS in the city, as we had discussed regarding Wanna-Lancet Mills and other infrastructure that actually needed that technology, but that they were going forward in the future regarding a wireless or as they call it, ultimately it was a small cell canisters. And that would improve the service. So what they've been doing recently is working with the administration to negotiate a contract for that actual service that would be advantageous. Obviously, we would do it be advantageous for ourselves. And this meeting was really a point of progress of where they were at that point in time and why that the initial dialogue that they had regarding FiOS had actually really changed with the city of Boston. So what the committee ultimately did after asking multiple questions is really put this as a report of progress, and actually the manager is still in the middle of his negotiations. At the end of the meeting, the Verizon actually started to try to bring up some of their negotiating points, and ultimately we made a point to say, listen, you need to continue negotiating with the manager. The positive points really looking at Verizon is they are a good employer in the city. I think close between 500 and 750 people work at Crosspoint, so they're a significant employer. They pay about $600,000 in taxes to the city, so they are, they do have a significant investment in the city of Lowell. I think what we need to do is continue the negotiations from the manager with Verizon and ultimately come to a deal that works for both partners. There's also an outstanding motion regarding the FiOS issue that Councilor Samaras has that's currently being reviewed by the legal department, so we need to get an answer to that as well. But I think ultimately the purpose of the subcommittee was really to get an update, get an explanation as to what happened in the city of Boston as compared to what we were receiving at our last meeting, and then really find out why is it important to have 50 canisters placed throughout the city. How is that advantageous to our citizens? So that was essentially the meeting. It was a motion by Councilor Elliott and second by Councilor Leahy to put that as a report of progress and for the manager to continue negotiations. So I make that as a motion as a report of progress. I know other folks will have other comments on it because it was an interesting meeting. I think we learned a lot, but I think a lot of people have strong opinions on this issue and should be able to have a discussion about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Elliott?
No, I think that was a very thorough report, and it was a good meeting, not only talking about FiOS, but also these canisters that will be, I guess they're wireless canisters that will be installed. But what was interesting was we have one in the city. They have one in the city now where they pay $6,000, and now they essentially don't want to pay anything, right? I mean, I shouldn't say anything, but marginal, because they don't in other communities.
They pay $6,000 now for one, and they want to pay $17,000 for 50.
Okay.
So that's the stumbling block with these negotiations right now.
So, I mean, I guess that's good. That's good news because it's more revenue, but and it is improving service to the people in the community as more users go wireless for news or whatever. But do we have any idea what other communities charge them, or is that that's what they pay and that's the base of bargaining? That's where we're starting.
It's been hard to really do that analysis because they haven't had a project of this magnitude in a surrounding town.
Okay.
So we've only been able to do with the single canisters, but
Right, you mentioned that at the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it was appreciate it.
Thank you, Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, this sounds like we're making great progress, but, you know, this is something that I hear time and time again from constituents, the high cost of cable television in the city of Lowell, okay? We are paying, in some cases, more than double than other cities and towns right around Lowell, okay? And it is not fair. They are gouging the residents of Lowell, Comcast. There's no two ways about it. For some people, the elderly, disabled, this is all they have, is cable television, okay? So we've got to do all we can to get competition in this city. So through the report, now, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, now, Mr. Manager, how realistic and how close are we to getting another option in here for cable television for the city of Lowell's residents? And this sounds a promising report, but are they willing to work with us at the very least?
Quite honestly, I don't think we're close at all. From television.
From television, okay.
These
Why-
canisters are gonna
Yeah,
improve your reception, and if you're smart like my son and can download Netflix onto your phone, you're gonna be fine, but for the average person, it's not gonna help them out at all.
So they don't want to, for Verizon Fios, they want nothing to do with us, it seems, huh?
Correct.
Just to, if I could, I think the way to look at it.
You're all set?
Yes.
Just to kind of like, that was the beginning, I think that's the initial question, is people want competition. I think ultimately what they're saying is, they do Fios in the city where it's advantageously to both partners, especially, well, obviously to them. The problem is the technology, as far as cable TV, you're talking 10 years from now, you're really not going to be using cable TV as the way we use it. There'll still be some folks, but ultimately you got students like even my fourth grader is using wireless. They're not going to be using the same technology. So what their business plan is for the city is to gear up for more capacity for wireless. So the questions that we had for them in addition are, how does that affect business, bringing businesses in to the city? And the city manager and I had discussions regarding, say, the Markley Group, who deals with a lot of these customers, bringing them in for a technology meeting so we could become more knowledgeable about what really is going to be happening in 5 to 10 years from now. Because the way they presented it is ultimately, we're ahead of every competitor. We're going to be going, quote unquote, to 5G in a number of years, and this is setting that infrastructure up to achieve that. So I think as counselors, the biggest thing we need to do, I think you're right about the pricing and all that, but I think that's probably gone. Because I think the technology in 5 to 10 years is really going to be so different that you're not going to be using cable TV the way you used it. And there's not a heck of a lot we can do that. I know Councilor Samaras has a motion regarding other ways of measuring that they have to address, but ultimately, the way the universe is moving right now is definitely more towards single-hand use. That's not really a good answer to the question. I think just that's where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years. It's been frustrating, because I know the manager and I have met multiple times, well, not only with internal folks with MIS, but legal and what have you, in terms of how do you develop an action plan to reduce the cost? And they did present that this should reduce the cost. You know, seeing is believing, I think, at the end of the day. But ultimately, what I think from my perspective, we need to find out, bring the Markley Group in, I think, to discuss really what options are out there and kind of really make me more knowledgeable, but also see what do our businesses need and our consumers need. I know, for example, like I just said, you know, people in elementary school are going to need more wireless capacity because they're already using that type of technology. And we're getting to the point, although we're not there yet, by holding off on the wireless technology, we're going to start to impact people's capacity and usage. I don't think we're there at this point, but, you know, as more people at UMass Lowell use it, more people at the high school level use it, more of those folks, you know, millennials are using it, Jim Leary's starting to use it better, we're going to start to run into problems with capacity. Long-winded answer to it, I don't think we're going to get that, Counselor.
Any further discussion? There's a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Council Leary, seconded by Council Leahy. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. There's also on the agenda a report from the Downtown Redevelopment Subcommittee, but that subcommittee meeting was postponed till April 4th. And so we'll just pass over that for now. And go to petitions. We have a petition requesting permission to address the City Council regarding pedestrian safety. I don't think the person's here, right? Okay, so we'll just put that off as well. There's also under petitions from the National Grid requesting permission to install an underground line of electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures to service the Hamilton Canal District. The motion would be to refer to a public hearing for March 21st, 2017 at 7 o'clock by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. If we can go back to 6.1, the person is not here, but if we can refer this to the city manager for a report and recommendation anyways, even though the speaker's not here. We have, Councilor Mercia, would you make that motion? Okay.
So moved.
Okay, second by Councilor Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Did we call his name? We did call his name, right?
Yeah.
Just, okay, he's not here. Okay. Thank you.
I think it's a woman, isn't it?
Next to
There's a
city
woman
council
there.
motions. Under city council motions, the first motion is by Council Larry, requested the city manager have the DPW repair the torn curbing in front of the Daily School on Fleming Street, seconded by Council Leahy. Council Leary.
It speaks for itself. They've already picked up the debris. There's large chunks of concrete, so if anything could do to repair, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion by Council Leary is requested the city manager have the traffic engineer determine the feasibility of a four-way stop sign at the intersection of Newbury and Fleming Street, seconded by Council Leahy. Council Leary.
It speaks for itself again. This is obviously near the Daily and the Bailey School. It's an area where there's a lot of volume of traffic.
Okay, thank you.
I would count the cars in the morning, not like at 10 o'clock.
Any further discussion? Council Mercia.
Refer to the city manager.
Discussion, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Leary, requested the city manager provide a report outlining the Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion process as it would relate to funding of the Lowell High School project. The report should include the positive and negative aspects of funding the high school project in this manner. Second by Council Mercia. Council Leary.
Just briefly, we've obviously been talking about location, but ultimately, coming up, we're going to have to make decisions on financing. And I know the mayor has spoken pretty eloquently on this in a variety of topics, but I think it's time now to get everybody really knowledgeable of what this means and what the positives and if there are negatives regarding it and timeframes that we'd have to go for it. So I think getting that out in front of people right now is good and valuable for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Leary. Request that the city manager work with appropriate department in order to provide a report making recommendations for changes if needed regarding the reported drainage issues on Douglas Road in front of the skating rink and adjacent wetlands. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Leary.
Just quick, I know a lot of folks have been talking about location for the high school. It really doesn't matter if the high school goes at Colley or not. If there are issues there, we should be trying to address them. A lot of folks, I know, have called each of us regarding that or have had real deep concerns about that, so I think we should look at it, and if there's an issue we should be resolving, we should resolve it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Leahy. Request that the city manager of the water department correct the billing for 77th Street. All right, 7th Avenue? 7th Avenue. Seconded by Council Leary. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the city manager. I have talked to Michael on this issue, and the only reason I put it on is just to make sure that I was thinking when I was putting the motion on that I just want to make sure that she doesn't have any problems with tax liens or anything like that, because in the past she's tried to deduct it and saying that she doesn't have septic, but it comes back that she has interest due. So I know sometimes if you don't pay that water bill or whatever, it could go to collections or something. So I just want to make sure everything was on the record for it. Thank you.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, if I could add to that motion, amend it and add 5456 Mead Street, M-E-A-D, Mead Street. In May of 2016, this family paid $166.88. August of 2016, they paid $191.86. In November of 2016, it went up to $924.95. And February of this year, 2017, it was $845.33. I don't know how it goes from like an average of like 180 to 800. If we could check into that. I have the bills right here. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no objection, we have an amendment by Councilor Mercia to include the Mead Street property as well.
Yes.
Seconded by Councilor Leahy. On the amendment, all in favor of the amendment, all opposed, so voted. On the main motion as amended, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Rourke, request the city manager of the proper department inspect the crosswalks at Lowell schools for updating. Seconded by Councilor Samaras. Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Mayor, Councilor Leary and I were at the Pawtucket Memorial School last week for a civic reading day, and a couple of the people there came up to us. I probably should have added Councilor Leary to this motion, but the crosswalks that were very, they can't be seen. I know with April 1st, they start doing it again. Is that the date? And I know Mr. Cooper will probably be very busy, but if we could just look at the different schools that, if we could freshen them up, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. The last motion of the evening is a motion by myself and Councilor Samaras, request that the city manager work with the newly formed Diversity Council to set up a series of additional meetings to present the high school project and the options available in different neighborhoods throughout the city, with a special emphasis on meetings in Spanish and Khmer. Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Mr. Manager, we know that we can't assume that all our constituents truly understand sometimes what projects are going on in the city, especially something like the high school. And the purpose of this motion is to ensure that we do reach out to the various communities in this city, especially second language constituencies that might only read local newspapers in their own language. Sometimes we assume that everybody reads the Lowell Sun and everybody listens to CAP, but that's not always the case. And I think it's important that we ensure that not only they're made aware of what the projects are about, but have input into those projects. However, since the inception of this motion, we know that the city has taken some steps. Could you outline presently what you're going to do to address this issue?
Councilor, on Wednesday, March 22nd, at the Senior Center, the Coalition for a Better Acre will be having a presentation relative to the Spanish-speaking population for the high school. And then on March 23rd, which is a Thursday, at the CMMA building, we will be doing a presentation for Khmer-speaking people. So they're already set up for the end of this month.
Now, are we going to have people from the various groups, the engineering groups, to be
Yes.
present?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Kennedy?
Yeah. Can you take that? Mayor Kennedy? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Manager, I think that this is important. I know that we've delegated a lot of the public outreach to Skanska and those people, and I know that they've had like about 12 meetings in different neighborhoods, but I also know, and I think many of us have heard the reports, that a lot of those meetings were poorly attended. And a couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity to be at a Delegate for Donuts event at the Coalition for a Better Acre. And there were a couple of people there that were asking me questions about the high school, but they weren't asking me how many modular units. They weren't asking me how long was the construction period. They were asking me what the heck it was. They had no idea what it was. And what's occurred to me through that experience, and also through talking to other people, is there's a lot of people in the city that really, even at this point, don't know what the high school project is. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people in this city that don't spend any time on Facebook. And so they depend on either the radio or either the radio or the newspaper to give them their information. And I just think that although we've depended on Skanska to run those meetings, and I'm sure that the contract that we have with them call for them to have those meetings, that the ultimate responsibility belongs to the city, and that we can do a better job than what we've done. So, and I know that I've talked to Mr. McGovern about this, and I know that it's, I imagine Councilor Samaras has already talked to you as well, so I do believe that we're, making efforts and that you're making efforts to rectify the situation, but I do think that between now and when the city council has to make another decision, whether it be, whenever it is in May, that the more meetings we can have, and it's one thing to have a meeting, we've got to publicize these meetings. And some people have asked if maybe it would make sense to have a meeting in Portuguese. And I don't know whether it does or not, but that's certainly something that should be investigated. But, the high school is used by everybody in the city, and there's still a lot of people that have no idea what the plans are for the high school. And so we should do whatever we can to reach out and try to make people and try to educate the public better than we have as to what that project entails. Thank you.
Any comments? No, Mr. Manager, all set? All right, all those in favor, all opposed, motion passes. Next on the agenda, announcements. Councilman Nazo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It's not an announcement, it's a question, if my colleagues would indulge me. I had on my calendar a public hearing tonight for a $1.2 million loan order for the garage over at Hamilton. I could have the date wrong, but it was did we do that already? That was, okay, thank you. I had the date wrong, thank you.
Nick Kennedy?
Yeah, I just have one announcement. I don't know if anybody knows this, but every 2 years in Southeast Asia, they have these games that are similar to the Olympics, but I guess they're limited to that part of the world. And Cambodia participates in that. Cambodia has a national basketball team, and I believe there are 3 or 4 starters on that basketball team that reside in Lowell, Massachusetts. And so a week from Monday, there is a fundraiser at the Copper Kettle. It's a $20 fundraiser to aid the basketball team as they go forward. I think they're going to participate in August, but I just wanted to pass that on. I know that Representative Ratty Mom is involved with that basketball team, and I think it's a good event. And I had an opportunity to meet several of the players several weeks ago. But anyways, I just wanted to announce that to anybody that can make it down there on that day. And that would be a week from Monday, and I believe it's from 7 to 9. Excuse me, I believe it's from 5:30 to 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything else? If I could just quickly, I know it was posted with the clerk earlier, there'll be a neighborhood services subcommittee also on the 13th, 7 p.m. In the Highlands at Temple Emmanuel. So pass that along as well. Highlands neighborhood issues. Right. Mayor Kennedy.
Move to adjourn.
Mayor Kennedy, second by Council Samaras. Good night.